Good morning, my friend, and welcome to the Pastor's Podcast. It's good to have you with me on this Friday morning. Looking forward to another great day of serving the Lord. Had a great day yesterday, and we were able to go out soul winning after everything was all done with the teen revival. And it was great. I was able to take one of the young men with me. We were able to see a couple say to tell you a story. The second guy that led to Christ, so we were headed on our way back to church. I already led one guy to Christ. I think I put that up on my Facebook post yesterday. And so we're headed back, and I'm driving by this house, and two young men are out in their yard talking. One of them was on crutches, and with a boot on his leg. I could tell he had injured his leg, and immediately it just caught my attention. So I whipped the car around. Those who know me, I whipped that car around, went to the drive, parked the car, and I walked up and said, "Hey, I'm Pastor Donnelly." And in one of the guys, you could tell he really wasn't wanting to talk to me. And so I just immediately turned my attention to, man, hey, what happened to your leg? And of course, immediately the man began to talk with me, tell me what was going on. And of course, I've got this right here that I'm dealing with. I said, yeah, I told him what was happening to me. So we're talking about our injuries there. And then I was able to transition it over to the gospel, and was able to lead the one man to Christ, all because I used something that has happened to me to be able to lead someone to Christ. And that's what God does. He takes things that we go through, and he'll allow us to be able to meet others so we can lead people to Jesus Christ. So always take whatever's going on in your life. You want to be a good soul winner, take those kind of things, and you'd be surprised how God will bring those things in front of you, which will allow you to be a better soul winner. Well, today, let's look at Daniel chapter 1 and verse 21. The scripture says, and Daniel continued even unto the first year of King Cyrus. If we were to try and identify what made Daniel great, there would be many answers to this question. His walk with God it was certainly a factor. His stand for right was another factor in making him a great man. But I believe it was his consistency year in and year out is what made him great. Daniel continued to do what was right. There is not one incident in Daniel's life you can point to and say that he messed up in that situation. Now, I want you to get this. Daniel did not set out to do great. Daniel set out to do right and to be consistent at it. Daniel, he was consistent throughout his life, and that's what made him someone that God could use mightily in his lifetime. Now, many people have done something right for one time, but to be consistent for a lifetime is what separates the heroes of the faith from the pretenders of the faith. After Daniel took the stand that he would not eat of the portion of the king's meat, God blessed him and his friends, and they appeared 10 times better than those who compromised. However, it says that about Daniel, and Daniel continued. It was the consistency of his life that allowed him to serve God for decades, and that consistency is what led him to be a mighty and a great man for God. Now, let me share the 4 areas where Daniel was consistent. First, Daniel was consistent with it in his testimony. Daniel's testimony was not just a reputation that he built on the outside, but it was a life he also lived in private. So you will never have a consistent testimony if you don't live privately what you portray publicly. So understand, there have been many who portrayed a life in public that they did not live in private, but it was eventually revealed because your private life always leaks out into your public life. If you want God to use you mightily, you need to be consistent with your testimony in private and in public. Second, Daniel was consistent in his stand. So Daniel didn't make a stand one time and become silent afterwards, but he continued to stand throughout his lifetime despite the unfavorable results that would affect the comforts of his life and the positions he held. God uses those, the mightiest, who are consistent in their stand. Many people have made a one-time stand. I was talking to my son-in-law about this, and we were talking about some of the preachers. And these are well-known preachers of today, actually. And we were just talking about a couple names, and these are good men. And we were just talking about them. I said, well, the problem with these men, I said, some of these men, as I said, they had one battle in them, and that was all. The one battle is what made them great. And after that, they never fought another battle. They've stood consistently, but they never fought another battle. They stay out of the battles. And I'm not saying that you seek battles, but you don't run from them either. And too many a man has one battle in him, and then he's done. Your stand for truth has to be consistent. And if your stand for truth causes you to have to enter another battle, you enter another battle. But we don't just say, I just don't want the pressure of the battle, my friend. That's where Daniel was consistent. That's why he became a mighty man of history. He didn't just fight one battle and it was all over. That's where his name became popular. He fought week in and week out, year in and year out. And that's what made him a great and mighty man. Third, Daniel was consistent in his separation from the world. Daniel didn't just separate from the world when he was a young man, but he was consistent in his separation as an older man, as he would have nothing to do with Belshazzar. A consistent life of separation is what keeps you from allowing the flesh and worldliness to control your life. If it was right to be separated from the world at one time in your life, it's still right to consistently live a separated life today. Too many people, I want you to get this, too many people, they don't have the stomach for separation, because separation means this. It means you got to pull away from friends who have started going the wrong way. Many people, they get, okay, let me illustrate. There are many preachers that they get involved in a conference. Their name is known in a conference, but that conference keeps guys coming in who, where they're from, start straying, and the other guys who are standing for right don't have the stomach, get this now, to separate from that conference. Because, well, I've always preached there. Yeah, but the one who's compromising, they're still having to come. Now, separation is critical to what we are. You've got to learn to separate. If you're not going to separate when someone if a man, let's say I'm an assistant pastor at a church. And I've been in churches, 3 separate churches in my ministry. Now, in these churches, get this now, I'm just going to say, I'm just going to use one church. Because really it was just one church. One church, the pastor started straying. I left. Now, many stayed. I separated from them. Now, get this now. Now, I wasn't popular when I left. Now, that man's no longer in the ministry, of course. But can I tell you that I had to have the stomach to separate? A lot of guys don't have that stomach to pull away from a place where they've put their roots in, because the one there has taken them a different direction. If you can't separate, you'll never be a great, mighty warrior of God. The consistency and separation must be in your life. Fourth, Daniel was consistent in his walk with God. I don't know, but I believe this might be the greatest part of Daniel's life. His walk with God was not something he did when he felt like it, but it was something he did day in and day out. And even when it was unpopular to walk with God, your walk with God defines your Christian walk. So you show me how you walk with God today, and I'll show you how God will use you tomorrow. You'll never find someone used mightily for God for a lifetime who does not have a consistent walk with God for a lifetime. If there's one area you've got to be consistent in, got to be consistent in your walk with God. But may I say this? Let's make sure we're consistent with our testimony, our life. You walk with God, your life, your private life and your public life will likely match. If you're inconsistent, those two you're going to start seeing a little separation in the two. But can I say this? But your stand for right. You've got to take that stand, even if you have to get in battles. I don't like battles. I don't seek battles. But if someone has to stand for truth, someone has to stand. And you got to be consistent in your stand. And your consistent stand is going to force you to separate. Do you see where all this goes? It really all starts with your walk with God. My walk with God affects my testimony. My testimony, private life, public life, if I keep it consistent, that means I'm going to have to take a stand at times, because truth is always under attack. Not that I seek the battles, but when they come, I take that stand. Now, when I take that stand, that's going to force me to separate. Because if I don't separate, so let's reverse this. If I don't separate, when I should, then I'll compromise my stand. If I compromise my stand, my private life and my public life will there'll be a chasm right there. And that chasm right there will start affecting my walk with God. And eventually it'll come out. It always leaks out. So let's keep these things the way they ought to. Let's be consistent in our lives. Because if we're consistent in our lives, my friend, don't set out to be great. I'm not looking to be great. I'm looking to walk with God. I'm looking to keep a testimony in my private life and public life the same. I'm looking to take a stand. I'm looking to live a separated life. That's what I look to do. Now, if I do that consistently my whole life, that's where you're going to find that God is going to use you in a mighty way. And that mighty way that God uses you, it forces you into the small crowd of people that have done this their entire lives. My friend, I'd rather be close to God by doing these four things than be in the popular crowd, because that's just what everybody's doing. Let's learn to take a stand. Let's learn to walk with God and keep our testimony right and live that separate life. And if we do this consistently, God will use you mightily. Well, I hope this is a great help to you today. Now let's remember today, be good to everyone.